I'm driving along a deserted track, 3,700 meters above sea level, in the Bolivian Altiplano. I'm on my way to Chipaya territory, a day's drive from La Paz, the capital. Over 2,500 years old, this indigenous community is the oldest in the Altiplano. Following numerous conflicts with other Indians, the Chipayas were forced to live self-sufficiently on the shores of an old salt lake, not far from Lake Pupo. The salt poisons their land, and yet they have stayed there. They have managed to harness this hostile environment thanks to a remarkable water management system and architecture adapted to the rigors of the Altiplano's arid climate. I want to find out more about the techniques which enable the Chipayas to make such intelligent use of their territory's limited resources. I reach Santa Ana de Chipaya, home to the 2,000-strong Chipaya community. There's a town hall, a school, and a few stores, but the village seems eerily deserted. Elias is waiting for me at home. Elias!
Yes? How are you? Welcome, my brother Phillipe.
Thank you.
Welcome to the village of Chipaya. This is my home.
I saw in the village that many of the houses are built with these dried earth bricks.
Yes, this house is made of adobe with a mold. I can show you.
Please.
Here you go. They're like this. These were left over. That house is another model.
Yes, it's quite different. How was it made?
I'll show you the material. I have some here.
They're slabs of sod.
That's right. We cut them out of the ground. Look, on the other side, you can still see the tufts of grass.
Oh, yes, you can.
You should always choose pieces like this so that it's nice and sturdy. There should be roots in it. We use these to make walls for houses, like that one over there.
That one there.
Yes.
When I walked through the village, there weren't many people around.
It's normal you didn't see anyone. They're all in the fields.
I see.
We're not living here right now because school is still out. The parents are still in the fields.
So you split your time between homes?
That's right, Phillipe. We Uruchipayas have several homes. One in the village, and those next to the fields, where we live when we're tending to our cattle, sowing, and harvesting. If you'd like to know more, I'll take you to my fields. Ready?
Let's go.
It's far. We'll get there faster by bike.
Okay, I'll just take my coat off. You're taking this bike?
Yes.
I'll take this one. Great, let's go.
Are you ready? Follow me. Be careful.
The Chipaya's space is structured by this tradition of living in several places at once. The village of Santa Ana, the administrative center, is in the middle of their 1,000 square kilometer territory. Dotted around it are the campos, or tiny hamlets, devoted exclusively to work in the fields and tending livestock. This separation of spaces and functions explains why mobility is at the heart of the Chipaya's way of life. More than living in the village, they inhabit a vast territory which they're constantly roaming. It takes over an hour to reach Elias's campo, across these vast and magnificent plains.
think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen, all for free. No subscription required.
Here we go, Phillipe. We've reached my camp. And that's my family.
Hello.
My wife, my daughter,
How are you?
Good, thank you. Hello.
and my sons.
Hello. How are you?
There, that's my camp.
When you come here with your family, what do you do exactly?
It's the rainy season right now, so we're mainly looking after the livestock. We have sheep.
There?
Yep, over there. We do other things when it isn't raining. We prepare the land for sowing quinoa.
Right.
At other times of the year, we're somewhere else.
Does that mean that you have other homes elsewhere?
Yes, I have 2 other camps. Right now, one is flooded and the other has been sown. That's why we're here. We can't stay in one place.
The shape of these houses is quite astonishing. Very even cones.
Yes, this type of house is called a putuku. It's conical, so that the wind can blow through it quickly. If the houses were square, the wind would buffet them and blow around them. With this cone shape, the wind doesn't stop. These are our sleeping quarters.
Okay. Right. And how many of you sleep in here?
The whole family.
This wall is very thick. Great protection from the wind.
Absolutely. To make it strong, the bottom is a bit wider and it thins out as it rises. If it was the same thickness all the way up to the top, with the weight, the house would collapse. That's the kitchen.
All right.
It's where my wife makes all our meals. Have a look. It's fully equipped.
Okay. Watching Elias and his family, I understand better why they're so attached to their putukus. These small, conical huts perfectly symbolize the idea of a protective shelter and home. A place enabling the whole family to get together and stick together. There are putukus like this all around us.
Yes, you can see there are several putukus. They're our neighbors.
But does each family set up camp wherever they like?
The land isn't divided. We live as a community. That's why everyone shares the work.
I see.
Everything's communal.
Community living.
Exactly. That's our life.
Among the Chipayas, spatial and social organization are inseparable. Their territory is divided into 4 aylus, or communities. All the members of an aylu are under the authority of a chief and they help each other daily. Elias introduces me to Don Sebastian, who has to finish building a putuku. A job he cannot do on his own and for which he has enlisted other members of his aylu. Before starting construction, the Chipayas perform a ritual associated with the cult of Pachamama, Mother Earth, to thank her for the resources she provides.
How are you, Don Sebastian?
Hello.
Are you well?
Fine, fine.
This is Phillipe.
Hello.
Hello, Phillipe.
Hello.
And there's the foreman, Dionisio.
We're building a putuku. That one's collapsed. We have to build a new one.
You're halfway there already.
Yes, this soil is dry now,
Yes?
so we can add damp earth to finish it off.
Okay.
As the soil is already dry, it's hard. If it were still damp, the house would fall down. That's our method for building putukus.
Can we help you?
Yes, of course.
Okay. What can I do?
You can go fetch the slabs.
All right, there?
Yes.
Shall I put it here?
That's it.
How long does it take to build a putuku?
1 day.
Right. There's no binder, is there? The slabs of sod are just laid on top of each other.
Yes, we don't use cement because there are no stones here. To make it long-lasting, you have to use drier soil.
And how long does a putuku last? How long does it stay standing?
A putuku can last 10 to 15 years.
Really?
Yes?
So it's really sturdy.
Yes, it lasts a long time.
Do you always build the putukus as a group?
Yes, because the foreman has to stay up there. He can't come down.
Yes.
So we pass him the slabs and he lays them. We can go fetch more.
Okay, let's go. Given how heavy these sod slabs are, it's no wonder the putuku is solid.
Yes, they're very heavy.
They weigh a ton.
And hard on your back.
Yes, it's backbreaking. A wheelbarrow, great. What a good idea.
Here's the last one.
That's the last slab. It's beautiful, huh?
Thank you for your help.
A few coca leaves inside.
To make it last.
Yes, 10 years.
I'll remember how you helped us, my French brother.
It's going to last 10 years for sure. These moments spent with the Chipayas make me realize how much they love living on these barren, windswept plains, as if exposing themselves to the rigors of the climate brought them closer to the natural world they revere. The Chipayas' land is poisoned by salt. To treat it, they must wait for the rainy season, which runs from November through March when the area's only river bursts its banks. This is when they practice the technique of lameo, a method unique to them for diverting and harnessing. It enables the Chipayas to clean and desalinate the soil, and also deposits a fine layer of silt on it to fertilize the soil. Without this skill, that they have mastered since the 16th century, the Chipayas would have no agriculture to speak of, and they'd be forced to live elsewhere. Alonso is a member of another Ailu. He's supervising the work for his community today. Hello. The champa, a simple slab of sod cut out of the ground and left in its natural state, is the root of both their architecture and their farming techniques. This direct use of nature is one of the keys to their survival. Right, this one. Okay.
Let's put a lot here.
Alonso, why is it important to do this work?
It's important because the problem with the land here is salt. We call the work we're doing today lameo. That is, we're creating a new fertile plot of land on this side. At this time of year, the water flowing through here is murky. It's full of rich and fertile soil. We're building a dam so this fresh soil stays here. We keep the water that arrives full of clay and will ensure a good harvest. Then we can sow quinoa, cañaúa, potatoes. No other communities or peoples work in this way. We are the only ones to use this technique. The other methods with machines don't work. Only our method yields results. That's why we're known as Cassoñi, people of the water. We live off the water. If there was no water, the Chipayas wouldn't exist.
Listening to Alonso, I realize the lameo is much more than a technique passed on from one generation to the next. It's an authentic memory of the water which the Chipayas have incorporated into everything they do. A very ancient recollection of their life on this dead lake, which reminds them why they are still, and despite everything, the people of the lake. The Chipayas' ability to adapt to this hostile environment and exploit its scarce resources fascinates me. Where does their determination to live here come from? Ramiro Molina, a Bolivian anthropologist specializing in the Andes, tells me more about the Chipayas' attachment to their territory.
The Chipayas come from an ethnic group called the Urus. The Urus settled pretty much all over the Bolivian Altiplano. And today it's one of the oldest cultures in the world.
The environment has become quite hostile. Why do the Chipayas continue to live here?
The fact is, this is an area where agricultural production is low. So the Urus' identity originates in their efforts to adapt to this environment. At the same time as taming their environment, they express themselves as individuals through a family, a culture. They live in harmony with nature. For them, home isn't just four walls and a roof, but the environment all around them.
When I see the way the Chipayas work the ground, it makes me realize that where nature has the least to give, paradoxically, that is where people respect it the most.
Yes, that is true. And it's because the Urus managed to adapt to their environment that they were able to introduce a sustainable production system. They do not destroy nature. Also, the Urus have identified very strongly with water since ancient times. It's the source of life. And the myths about their origins are linked to the relationship between water, the sun, and the earth. This interdependence and this way of adapting to the environment have enabled them to survive till now.
On the arid land of the Altiplano, in this dry, cool climate, the finest example of how the Chipayas have adapted to their environment is the cultivation of quinoa. It's their staple food. Elias is proud to show me his Ailu's cultivated plots. It's big. It's beautiful here.
As you can see, for now, the quinoa is still green. It needs to ripen. The crop will be ready late April, early May. Look at this plant. It is finished flowering. Look at its small seeds. See? Look.
Right. The seeds. It's tiny.
It isn't ripe yet. See? There's milk coming out of it.
Ah, yes.
It needs a little bit longer. If the weather stays like this, with a bit of rain, the harvest will be good.
Here in the Altiplano, the land is really barren. And I find it incredible you've managed to grow these fields of quinoa.
You always need to have faith, to believe that you will succeed. Because look around you. The mountains are far away. There's only pampa here, so there's nothing to stop the wind. Sometimes we get frost or hail, which can damage the quinoa too. So it's a long-term endeavor.
And without this quinoa crop, you couldn't survive here.
Right. Our survival depends upon it. Of course, we have our livestock too, sheep, llamas, but that's secondary. The most important is this crop. It's what enables us to cover the children's expenses, like school.
You Chipayas live on land that's pretty much poisoned by salt. And yet you still live here.
My father and mother brought me into the world here, on this land. Sometimes I ask myself, why in this pampa? But the fact is, I love the land where I was born. I'm used to it. It's my life. What else could I possibly do? My brother Phillipe, we're going to eat now.
Really? Ah, great. Excellent. I'm hungry too. Thanks.
Sit there.
Here? Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you very much.
This is pizzara. It's quinoa with cheese.
Ah, did you make this cheese yourselves?
Yes, we make cheese with our used milk.
It's good. It's tasty for sure. Do you like splitting your time between here and the village?
I prefer being in the fields. It's more fun, there's more space, and I like that.
But can you imagine living in just one home when you're older?
I've never thought about living in one spot. I'm used to living in 2 or 3 different places and moving between homes.
So what is different about living here in the Putucus?
In the countryside, we have a lot of fun. Life is much lighter. In the village, I feel hemmed in. Here we can see really far. I grew up in the Putucus too. They're nice and warm, and I really like it.
Thank you so much for inviting me to share this meal with you. It was great.
I'm so happy, so pleased you came to visit my camp and meet my family. My friend Phillipe.
Are you playing with the doggy? Playing with the dog? On leaving the Chipayas, I think I've understood why they continue to live on this land scorched by the sun and salt, where hardly anything grows. It isn't simply because they found a place of their own here after centuries of conflict with other Indians. It's first and foremost because they've learned to love their land by tending to it, to see in something fragile and vulnerable the most precious of treasures, just like their community lost in the immensity of the Andean plains. My name is Phillipe. I'm a philosopher, and I'm interested in how architecture shapes and defines our lifestyles. I'm taking you with me to explore some of the most unusual living environments on the planet, to better understand what's behind them and share what they have to offer. I'm in southern Chile, 1,000 kilometers from the capital, Santiago. I'm on my way to the Chiloé Archipelago, a group of 44 islands. The largest measures 8,400 square kilometers and is home to 150,000 people. The island's vast primary forests enabled its inhabitants to develop remarkable woodworking skills. Today, Chiloé is famous for its wooden boats, houses, and churches, 16 of which are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. But beyond its practical uses, wood has given rise to a collaborative ethos. For the Chilotes, who have a long history of isolation and poverty, this is manifested in the Minga, a system of mutual aid between neighbors when building a new house or moving to another part of the island. This practice also involves great ceremonies to which the Chilotes are very attached. I'm hoping to understand the meaning of this truly unique tradition. A single road leads to San Juan, a village some 30 kilometers from Castro, Chiloé's capital. This typical village of fishermen and carpenters, set between land and sea, is a tranquil spot where time seems to have stood still.
Bonjour. Philippe, hola.
Armando, who is passionate about the island's history, is going to teach me all about Chiloé's wood culture.
Hello, Philippe. It's great to meet you. Welcome to Chiloé.
Thank you. It was a long journey.
Chiloé is a long way, but it is worth it.
I'm sure it is. I've just been admiring this wonderful church.
It's very big. It's one of 16 churches on the island to have been designated as World Heritage Sites by UNESCO. It was built in 1875.
And what's remarkable is it's made entirely of wood.
This church is over 30 meters long and 15 meters wide. It was built with the island's finest species of trees. We use wood for everything here. Our houses, our boats. You could say it was fundamental to the island's development. So much so that here in Chiloé, we speak of wood culture. San Juan is a typical village because all the houses are built around one spot, always around the church. Here, Philippe, this is my home, a traditional Chilote house.
Ah, yes, very beautiful. Everything is made of wood. I love this frame here with the cladding next to it. It's really beautiful.
The houses of my village, here in San Juan, are entirely covered with larch tiles, just like mine.
I see.
Everything is made of larch, because it lasts so long. The shape of the windows, with these small panes, is also typical of Chiloé's architecture. You see, one tile covers two.
All right.
The water can't get in.
Like fish scales.
Precisely. Like the scales of a fish. It's the same thing. Thanks to this, the houses are well insulated and very warm. Cold and damp can't get in. Please, come in, come in. Phillipe, meet my wife, Doris.
Hello. Hello, Doris. Thank you for having me. It's very warm and inviting, this room, around the stove.
It's a very important place where the whole family gets together to chat. Parents, children, grandparents, grandchildren. We all sit and share a moment together. Armando plays the accordion and we sing. It's a very special place on Chiloé.
But family doesn't just mean people who share the same name. Our neighbors and friends are part of our family as well.
The houses here are a collective endeavor.
There is a collective system, a system of solidarity, whereby neighbors help each other. It's what we call the minga.
I see.
This house, for instance.
Your home?
Yes, we built this house thanks to a minga.
It doesn't only apply to building homes. Sometimes it's to build, sometimes it's to help in the fields or to gather firewood for winter.
Another aspect of Chiloé's traditional mingas is moving house. Sometimes they aren't in the best spot, not always where we would like, so we move them to a better spot. For instance, closer to a path or to the sea, when we're too isolated up in the mountain. The house next door, you see it? Was transported by sea and land thanks to a minga.
I see. But why move houses instead of building new ones?
Let me ask you this. Would anyone ever dream of abandoning a child? A home is like a child. It's where the children are born, where they grow up, where the family is built. So we couldn't buy a house that was totally devoid of atmosphere and not the heart of the family.
Arising in the 19th century, the minga was still widespread in the 20th century. It enabled villagers to meet and pass on know-how. And it was where the Chilote community's values could be reaffirmed. But with the introduction of machines and new construction materials, the need to help each other has disappeared and the minga is gradually dying. Freddie finds this regrettable. He lives in the neighborhood of Gamboa, home to stilted fishermen's houses built in the 1940s during the rural exodus, when landless peasants turned to the sea to survive. Without the spirit of the minga, this neighborhood wouldn't even exist.
Hello, Freddie. Can we come in?
Hello, I'm Phillipe. Hello. Oh, what an extraordinary sight. Are there many palafitos like this on Chiloé?
There are quite a few palafitos, but only 7 or 8 are actually lived in by locals. The others have been sold. They're hotels, restaurants. I've lived here for 65 years. I was born on this island. Life was different then.
How did people used to live?
Let me show you some old photos. This was taken in the 1980s. It's the house we used to live in. There are all the boats and nets.
They're real fishermen's houses. It's changed a lot. And this, who's this? You?
Yeah, that's me.
All right.
Come on. I'll take you out on the water to see the palafitos.
Where? Down there? I've got to climb down there?
Just do what I do.
Okay, it's a real climb. Okay, I'm coming down.
I don't know if you're going to fall, but in any case, it's the only way down.
I go out with Freddie in his boat to see the seafront while Armando makes the most of the deck. Truly beautiful.
When I get up in the morning, the first thing I do is look at the sea. It's priceless. My house burned down 6 years ago. It was razed to the ground, totally gutted. I was on the streets, as they say. It was in ruins. And then all the neighbors set to work rebuilding it, like a human machine.
I get the impression that solidarity is really at the heart of island life.
One day, a car stopped outside. We were busy working on the house. It was a van that had brought 20 wooden beams. They said, "Is this Freddie's house that burned down?" I said it was. They said to me, "We've brought you some beams so you can rebuild your house." It brought tears to my eyes. It's true. When I think about it, I said no. Do you know what they said? They said, "Come unload these beams before we whack you with them." That's the minga. It's non-financial help. It has nothing to do with money. The real sense of friendship is typical of the Chilotes. Everyone here is like that. Look, this is what I'm talking about. That house burned down. The two people working on it are neighbors. They live in the house next door. There you go. I don't need to tell you about it. It's visible. You can see it for yourself.
Listening to Freddie, I realize just how central solidarity is to the Chilotes' lives. It might be informal, but it's also highly organized and gives rise to an important ceremony. Armando told me there was going to be a minga on a neighboring island, at his friend Arcadio's place. In the past, large houses were moved several kilometers, but these days, it's only short distances. In a few days, Arcadio will move his shepherd's hut so he can have a view of the sea and the mountains. But first, he has to get the house ready. Hello.
Hola.
I'm Phillipe.
Welcome, good to meet you.
Hello, Arcadio.
Hello, Arcadio. Welcome.
So this is the house for the minga.
Yes, this is the house we're going to move during the minga. There are a few things left to sort out.
And is there work to be done inside?
Yeah, we have to reposition a few tiles and remove the windows. That's all. Do you want to come see?
It's beautiful. I'd love to see it. It's incredible. The's nothing left. Just the frame and the wood cladding. Even the flooring has been removed.
You have to remove as much as possible and just leave the structure. The idea is to break nothing and then put everything back in place. As you can see, we've removed the floorboards, the paneling, the furniture. All that's left is the basic structure.
Is the idea to make it as light as possible so you can transport it?
Yes? It's important to remove everything for the move because we don't actually know if we'll manage, if the oxen will be able to take the weight.
If the house will take it.
Yes, the house could break too.
Is there still a fair amount to do?
We just have to put the tiles up there, a line of tiles. You want to help me?
Sure. Let's get to it. I'll get it. These little nails are hard to get out. These houses are designed to be moved several times in a lifetime. Shall I put it here? Out of necessity, Chiloé's carpenters made sure they were easy to dismantle. With the sea there and the Andes in the distance, it's sublime.
Look, being Chilote means everything to me. Living in this environment, living on an island, with all our culture, all our distinctive characteristics. This life we've created for ourselves is part of us. It enables us to improve our everyday life, to go further. It unites us. It keeps us alive. And it gives us the energy to go on working. For me, being Chilote is everything. It's so much more than simply living in this place.
On the island, the impact of Chiloé's wood culture goes far beyond housing. Before the Minga starts, I meet up with Armando on the edge of one of the island's primary forests to learn how nature has shaped the Chilote's identity. Armando, was Chiloé's wood culture born in these forests?
Yes, it's thanks to these trees that we have survived, and that life has developed since the first settlers came to Chiloé Archipelago.
Forests cover 67% of Chiloé's land area. But since the first settlers arrived in 1550, the island has lost over 40% of its forest cover. Have there been deforestation-related disasters here on Chiloé?
When there were few islanders, logging didn't pose a problem. There was a balance, a harmony. But over time, and with the increase in the archipelago's population, the forests have been overexploited. This is a crucial moment in the life of Chiloé's forests.
No more forest means no more wood culture either.
We certainly don't want that to happen. What would we do then? We wouldn't be able to build anything. Metal and cement have no place here on the island.
On Chiloé, the bond with the forest is so strong that it has penetrated the islanders' beliefs and spirituality. In their collective imagination, these forests are inhabited by mythological creatures. On Chiloé, do you think you're protected by the trees?
The tree is like a friend. It's possible many of the beliefs we have in the Chiloé archipelago stem from this. Setting reality aside, we believe other creatures live together in the forest. They look after us and the trees. This is true of the Trauco, whose task is to count the forest's trees every morning with his stone axe.
The Trauco.
The Trauco, yes. This being resembles a very small person with a grotesque appearance. Yet it commands respect. It is here to scare off anyone who comes with bad intentions. Its task is to protect and take care of our forests. That is why I was telling you earlier that Chiloé's cultural and natural heritage are one and the same. When we harm nature, the environment, the forests, we also destroy much of our way of life, our beliefs and traditions.
The day of the Minga has finally arrived. It's a real privilege for me to witness this ceremony, as it is rarely performed on the island these days. Hello, Arcadio.
Hey, hello, Phillipe. Come here.
How are you?
It's great to see you.
This is the big day, right?
Yep, the big day is here. We're getting the fire ready for the curanto.
Curanto is a typical Chilate dish of seafood, meat, and potatoes steamed together. It is served at every Minga to all the participants to thank them for their help.
At the Mingas of the past, people didn't have utensils or bowls. So it was more practical to dig a hole in the ground, put all the ingredients in it, and eat directly from there.
People have come from all over the archipelago to attend the event. Fantastic. We're in the thick of the smoke. It's awesome. It's impressive, huh? Young and old mingle at this festive, collective gathering where the Chilate identity is proudly displayed. So whatever the purpose of a Minga, is it always primarily a question of hospitality and solidarity?
Helping one another was a necessity in a poor region like this. All you had to offer was assistance to a neighbor in need. Thanks to the Minga, people could live and meet their basic needs. Later, it became a sort of institution, but it arose from the need to survive.
With the curanto finished, the Minga begins. There's a fair amount of excitement around the house.
Careful. Watch out. Move back a bit. Give us some more room. Don't scare the oxen.
Que lo pasen, que lo pasen. Yo, Tessa, eja. ¡Viva Chiloé! Muy bien.
Bravo. Congratulations, Arcadio.
Thank you.
Congratulations. The house has only been moved 100 meters or so, just so that its occupant can enjoy a gorgeous view of the sea and mountains, and for the sheer pleasure of holding a minga.
Here it doesn't matter. It has never mattered if one person has more than another. What's important for community life is to be better people and to better help others. We pray that this valuable heritage of our ancestors never dies. We can probably continue to grow, but Chiloé must always be Chiloé, because it's the minga that represents the true unity and development of the Chilote people.
Listening to Armando, I realize the minga is no longer about economic necessity. It is just a symbol nowadays, but a symbol in which the Chilotes see what they were and what they would still like to be, a community whose core values are solidarity and hospitality. At a time when most societies have become inward-looking and have turned their homes into bastions of ultra-private life, the people of Chiloé are a reminder that true living is about living together. Okay, here goes.
Watch your fingers. Be careful. Excellent. A real pro. A good Chilote carpenter.
That's it, I'm moving here. I'm gonna build houses.
Well, we can sell you this place.
My name's Phillipe. I'm a philosopher, and I'm interested in what architecture can tell us about our lifestyles. I'll take you to explore some of the most remarkable habitats on the planet in order to discover their meaning and to share their riches. Today, my travels take me to Peru, to the middle of Lake Titicaca. I've always dreamed of seeing this mythical place, the cradle of the Inca civilization. Covering 8,300 square kilometers and perched at 3,800 meters above sea level, it is located in the Andes between Peru and Bolivia. This island sea has served as a refuge for one of the most ancient peoples we can trace to this region, the Uros. Chased from the lake shores by conquerors such as the Aymaras in the 12th century, then the Incas, and finally the Spanish in the 17th century, most of the Uros were finally assimilated into Aymara culture and remained on dry land. But some, to avoid a life of slavery, took refuge on one of the artificial islands in the middle of the lake. They're the ones I want to meet. I want to find out the singular lifestyle of these inhabitants and their masterpieces of floating architecture. But above all, I want to understand the reasons that keep them apart from civilization and its riches. After more than 1 hour in a boat, I meet Aurelio on Titino, one of the 36 islands still inhabited. Great.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, Aurelio. Thanks for inviting me. This is incredible.
We live on this island. It looks small, but it's big. We've lived here for 15 years. Welcome to the Uros Island of Titino.
Thank you.
There are 6 families living here. That's 23 people, including the children. This is how we live.
What are we walking on?
You're walking on totora.
What is totora?
It's a plant that grows everywhere on the lake. You see over there? That plant in the distance is totora. We cut it down and bring it here. And that's what you're walking on. Nice, isn't it?
It's quite funny. And it's wild to think we're floating here.
Yes, we're floating. It moves, see?
Yes, you can see it's moving, especially at the edges. How do you live on this soft ground, which ripples at the water's edge and is no more than 350 square meters? For centuries, the Uros have chosen to live here, mainly from fishing and hunting wild birds. You must explain to me, Aurelio, because I really don't get it. How does this float? And more to the point, how does it hold together?
It's because it's made of totoro and kili. It has a floating thickness of 2.5 meters. Look, Phillipe, this is kili. The totoro roots are in the kili. Here you see, that's what floats. The island is made up of 3 pieces of kili. We must tie the 3 pieces together with a rope and put a wooden stake at each corner. We begin by tying it like this. Here and here, like this. And here. And then we finish up. Now it looks like just one platform.
So the kili makes up the base which enables you to anchor the island. But how do you lay out the totora?
The first week we bring the first layer. This is a maraya, which is an assembly of totora. We pull out 10 marayas, like this. Then we cross them with 10 more marayas. 1, 2, 3, up to 10 marayas. And the third week we begin again on the other side. It takes 3 weeks' work.
And is the kili heavy enough to prevent the island from drifting?
The kili floats, so we need a safety system. And that's our anchor. The anchorage is the most important. That way the islands stay permanently in one spot. Without the anchors, the island could drift with the wind, perhaps as far as Bolivia, who knows. That's why we've put 7 anchorage points around the island.
I see you have solar panels. I didn't expect to see any here. What do you use them for?
The solar panels give us some light in the evening. Before, we'd use candles, but that was very dangerous for us. 5 or 6 years ago, all the houses burned down. The whole island burned. We didn't buy them. They were a gift. That's why we have solar panels. Sit down there. I'll sit here. This is Olga.
Hello, Olga.
You see, Phillipe, this is our job. We must ready our nets to catch a few fish.
Olga, do you disentangle nets every day?
Yes, Phillipe. We must sort out our nets every day. And the children help.
It's not easy. You have to have the knack.
You're doing very well.
I'm not a natural, but I apply myself.
I'll help you a bit.
Here on the island, you're very isolated. Do you see this as a constraint or as a form of freedom?
It was our grandparents who chose this place and who created this island and lived here. Nobody has authority over us. Our only constraints are wind and water. They're the only ones. It can happen that the wind or the swell suddenly takes a piece of the island. That does sometimes worry us. But when the lake is calm, we really feel at peace.
Being on this island is to experience a kind of timelessness. The simplicity of the elements gives us a feeling of eternity. The vast lake that carries us, the mountains in the distance that circle the horizon, and the protective sky form a whole within which we feel sheltered and in our place. The Totora directly determines where their island sits. This is found near a zone of 25,000 hectares, covered with the rushes that occupy most of the bay.
We're on the path. This is the route.
We can see all the places you've cut the Totora.
Yes, it's already growing again. We cut all along here.
Further up?
Yes.
Do you come here to cut Totora every day?
No. But right now it's the rainy season. The island becomes very humid. We can't even sit down to disentangle our nets. So we come and cut the Totora every other week. And if it's too wet, we come at weekly intervals. We constantly lay down a new carpet, add layers and layers. We have to cut all the time. And we also need it for the roof and the walls. We cut for 3 or 4 hours. It isn't easy. And you can eat it too. It's called chulo.
Okay.
It's very tender.
Tastes good?
Not bad at all. What fascinates me is that Totora is a plant that is central to your life. It's the island floor, the walls and the roofs of your houses. It's your main activity, and it's also part of your diet.
If it wasn't for Totora, we'd have no home. We'd have no island. Totora is the most important thing. We'll transport this as a maraya, not on the boat. We'll tie it with the rope and drag it.
The harvested roots will be used to maintain the island. In fact, an island has a shelf life of no more than 40 years and requires a heavy-duty annual service. For the Uros, Totora is much more than just a plant. It's a way of life at the heart of a natural ecosystem upon which they are totally dependent. Without it, not only would their habitat disappear, but also their territory, their know-how, and their culture.
dos y tres, vamos. Dale, 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 dale. Ya.
The Uros are part and parcel of an inhabited area where man and nature are not in opposition but are harmoniously balanced. Early in the morning, everyone is already busy smoking fish caught during the night. It is placed between two levels of stones, heated by totora, obviously. Fishing is becoming more and more complex on the lake, and the fish are disappearing. The pollution caused by the mining industry is to blame, of course. But the main reason is the fact that hundreds of thousands of farmers have now turned to fishing in the bay, depriving the Uros of their means of subsistence. Just like every week, Aurelia and Olga go to the village of Liachan to trade their fish for vegetables or for a little money with which to buy gas. On the lake shore, we find architecture typical of the adobe-style houses, that is, made of bricks of dried clay. It is an effective ally against the cold wind from the Altiplano, the high Andean plateau. This is Liachan's market square?
Yes, this is the square in Lachon. This is where we'll barter.
It's hard to believe that this is market day, as the villagers go about their business with calm and serenity, addressing us wordlessly to buy food.
Philip, you can give the lady her fish.
How many? 8? 8?
For a kilo, you must give 8 fish.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
You can give her one more.
And a little one.
Thank you. You must always give a little more. That's what business is about.
How is the bartering going?
We've traded for beans, potatoes, and chuño, which is dried potatoes. The bartering is going well today. Philip, you can give the lady one more fish.
I give her one more?
Yes.
That one? Okay, that one was too small. Have you ever thought of leaving your island to come and live here?
I'd like to live in an adobe house. Because on the Uros Islands, it's cold, especially at night. It's not like that in an adobe house. It's warmer. That's why I'd like to live here.
If you came to live here, your whole lifestyle would be transformed.
I could change and look after a patch of land. I could learn to work, to grow things. I could change. I could change my clothes too. Instead of my hat, I could wear a montera or a jacket like those ladies who came. Yes, I could adapt.
Today, your island costs you nothing. But if you wanted to move to dry land, you'd have to buy some property, and that can be expensive.
That's right. The land is very expensive. Here, 1 square meter costs about 40 euros, maybe more. We don't have all that money to buy land. That's how it is.
Jose is a historian. He lives in the region on the lake shore, and for several years he's been researching the Oros. He is the memory of this people, whose culture is as yet little known.
The
little we know about the Uros is a mixture of myth and legend. There's a myth that tells of how they were the first men created by Viracocha, the god who created life on the Altiplano, and that following a flood, they were the only survivors this god saved. It's interesting to know where they really come from. And then we have this word Euro, which means morning, as well as men of the dawn, or men who don't want to live in civilization, who want to be as free as the beasts in the field.
Beyond the architectural and climatic constraints, we have a wonderful feeling of freedom when we're on this island.
This freedom that you talk about, we feel it too. And I'd like it to continue, as it symbolizes life on the Altiplano. To us, the rain, the hail, and the extreme cold are not punishments, but blessings of the Pachamama, and we're used to living with them. These elements don't scare us. On the contrary, we feel that they accompany us like brothers throughout our lives, like divinities that watch over us.
And who is the Pachamama?
For us, the Pachamama is Mother Earth, nature. Pacha, time, space, place. Mama, generous, good, constant. She is the most important divinity in Andean theology.
For me, discovering the island of Titino was simply amazing. But you live here. Have you always known it?
Yes, it was a surprise for us too to learn that the island of Titino still existed. It's only been a decade since we began to talk about these Euros who lived on Titino in the true Euro tradition.
But how is it possible that it's only been known for 10 years?
Although they have always left their island for bartering, they would take care that no one approached them and lived there on their own, totally and deliberately isolated. They are closer to the tradition of the Euros and live in harmony with the lake, venerating the lake divinity as part of their religion, and by adopting the ancestral heritage of respect for nature and respect for everyone. This gives us food for thought. How did our ancestors take care of nature, and how do the Euros continue today, despite the globalization we hear about, to fight to preserve nature?
Respect for nature is at the heart of the Oros culture. Surprisingly, their island has no foundation. It floats delicately like a leaf laid on the lake. This is a totally opposite rationale to the deep rootedness that characterizes the way we live. The lake is a land that the Oros cannot possess, nor would want to. Here, water and wind are the real masters of the house. All the available materials on the island are recycled and reused. Totora, of course, but also wood and nails.
Phillipe, can you hold this? You mustn't let it move.
As there is little, nothing is thrown away. Everything is precious and carefully reused to rebuild their dwelling. Today, it's the kitchen's turn.
Let's go to the kitchen.
Okay, we'll go to the kitchen.
First, we'll take off the roof. Then we'll dismantle the structure. Then we'll put this wall in place. And then the roof that Thomas is finishing.
Do you often have to destroy your kitchen like this?
We have to do it every 4 or 5 years, because after a while, it lets in the wind. And this kitchen is too big anyway. A smaller kitchen would be warmer. That's why we're dismantling it.
That means that you are constantly rebuilding your homes.
You have to change your roof every 3 or 4 months. The wall will last a year. Come on, let's go.
Excuse us, we're preparing your new kitchen.
Great.
They're used to it. We can take away the walls and they won't move.
Yes, they're used to it. It's not a problem. Yes, here.
Okay.
That can still be used. Yes, we'll dismantle it piece by piece. That's used for cooking on the stove. We can use that too as a fishing rod or to make another structure.
Okay, go.
Okay.
Like this, no? Oh, sorry. Over here?
Now the roof. Go on, Phillipe.
There you go. Hey.
Right then.
Yeah.
That looks good.
Terrific. The new kitchen is ready.
There you are in your new kitchen. Aurelio, this is the first house I've ever built.
Phillipe, now we've finished. We'll serve up a good meal. Because we've built a new kitchen. That is our custom.
At the end of my trip, the remarkable way the Oros inhabit the world makes me wonder. Like Sisyphus pushing his boulder daily, the Oros are condemned to constantly cut the totora to rebuild their island. Otherwise, it would disappear, and they with it. Some might see this as proof of their tragic destiny, but I'd say they were wrong. With this repeated action, the Oros are investing their habitat with meaning. By renouncing terra firma, they have found the space to be free. My name's Phillipe. I'm a philosopher, and I'm interested in what architecture can tell us about our lifestyles. I'll take you to explore some of the most remarkable habitats on the planet in order to discover their meaning and to share their riches. Today, I'm in Peru, in Iquitos, the capital of the Loreto. I'm fascinated by the geographical location of this city. Lost in the Amazonian rainforest, over 1,000 kilometers from Lima, the current population of Iquitos is 400,000. It's the largest city in the world with no road access. The only way to get there is by boat or by plane. How did this city, deep in the heart of the virgin forest, become one of the largest cities in the country? To find out, we need to look at the role the river played as it enabled the first inhabitants to settle here and develop trade and commerce. Part of the population of Iquitos still lives on the riverbanks in Belén. Located in the floodable part of the city, Belén is a working-class district with wooden houses with corrugated iron roofs built on stilts. Here, 5 months a year, 70,000 inhabitants live with their feet in the water. That's why the district is called, not without irony, the Venice of Loreto. I wonder how it's possible to live near a river that's so unpredictable. Michel, who was born and raised here, is waiting for me at the jetty in his water taxi.
Phillipe.
Hello.
Hello, Phillipe. Climb into the boat.
Are we already in Belén?
Yes, we're in Belén. This is where I live. It's the rainy season. The river is rising and there's water everywhere. So I'll take you to my place by boat.
Okay, let's go. Belén lives according to the river's tantrums. Every year, it bursts its banks and reshapes the district and all of its activities. At first sight, this suburb seems to have grown in an informal way, like an oil slick on the surface of the river, without any planned urban development or construction norms. Frankly, it's pretty hard to get my bearings. But I discover that it's organized into sectors, with streets and numbered houses, and that it has a host of services, such as schools and health centers. In the suffocating heat and humidity, I notice that the inhabitants not only live on the water, but also in the water, where they carry out most of their activity. Little by little, I discover an architecture and a lifestyle governed by the constant need to adapt to the vagaries of nature. Is that a soccer goal?
Yes, there's a soccer field, but it's underwater.
Is there a lower floor here?
It's a two-story house.
So the first floor was flooded and now everyone is living upstairs.
Right.
The amazing thing is, this system of pontoons and waterways which allow the whole neighborhood to get around during the floods.
This is a temporary bridge just for the winter. People use it to get from one place to another. In the summer, when the water level drops, we remove the bridge and it becomes a street again. Then motorbikes and scooters can pass through.
It's crazy. When you see the water like this, it's hard to imagine that 4 or 5 meters below, there's a road and a totally different lifestyle in summer.
For those of us raised here, it's normal. We live in harmony with nature.
Michel lives in St. John's Alley with his wife and 3 children in a house built entirely with materials collected in the forest.
And here's my home. We built it 5 meters above ground. That way it won't get flooded.
Hello.
Welcome to my home.
You built it yourself?
Yes. With various kinds of wood. There's a bit of everything. There's picharina, and that's guacapu. In the corner, it's quinila.
Lots of different species. I guess the wood rots and you must replace it.
Right, even hardwoods, once they've been subjected to water, they end up rotting. But this wood, palo sangre, it's very resistant to water. It lasts for years. It's harder than iron.
And the roof, are they palm tree leaves?
Yes, from a palm tree known as irope. We plait them together so the rain can't get through. Once plaited, we put them on the roof, upside down, and the rainwater just slides off, just like water off a duck's back. There are other individual rooms. I'll show you.
Hello. These are the bedrooms.
This is mine, and that's my son's.
Hello.
And this bedroom is for my daughters.
You can tell by the decoration. It's really pretty. Micher's home is pretty basic. Just a plank floor resting on stilts, with a few partitions to demarcate spaces and provide some intimacy. But thanks to this light structure and the choice of materials, the house is very well adapted to the geographical and climatic context. I'm guessing the palm leaf roof also helps keep the place cool.
Yes, they do. But these leaves are becoming scarcer. We have to go much deeper into the jungle to find them. They used to grow around here. I'll replace the roof, because corrugated iron lasts much longer. A corrugated iron roof can last for years, maybe 15 or 20 years. You have to replace the palm leaves every 2 years, and their price keeps on rising.
It's really sad that just because of economic reasons, you'll have to abandon these materials for more modern materials which may not be so well adapted.
You're absolutely right.
Your living conditions might become quite complicated if you change all the materials.
But you have to adapt. Otherwise, where can we go? Even if it's in corrugated iron, at least you've got a roof over your head.
Flood levels vary constantly, and this year the river keeps on rising. In a few days' time, Micher's home will be flooded. He's getting ready to move to a nearby floating house known as a casa balsa. It's one big room floating on a raft of tree trunks, which have to be changed every year. Micher's wife, Leo, is overseeing the move, making sure that everyone has a place and all their belongings.
The kitchen will be here. Francis will be there, Sabrina there, and the table here, with the TV on it. Everyone can have some private space. We'll add a plank across the room. This will go here, like this.
So the bed spring becomes the floor.
We put a few of these up and the mattresses on top.
Very ingenious.
My daughter will be comfortable here. The river can rise and flood our real home, but we'll be just fine here.
I'll pass the trunks through here.
Like that?
We get flooded every winter. The big trunks under the plank floor rot, so I have to change them. It's the only way. Thanks to our floating house, we can cope with the floods. When the river rises, the floating house rises with it. When it recedes, the house goes down too. It was my wife's idea.
You should always listen to your wife.
That's for sure.
It needs some weight to get it underneath. Is it stuck? It's through. I can feel it coming up. It's coming up. That's it, it's working.
The trunk's underneath. All's well that ends well.
Good job. That was tough work. I'm amazed by the architecture of this casa balsa. It's like the people of Belén, inventive and skillful, constantly using strategy and cunning to deal with this hostile environment and avoid its pitfalls. A real love story, often complicated, bonds the river and its inhabitants. They live both with it and off of it. Everything takes place on or around the river. It's the major link between people, towns, and communities. As the main means of transport, it supplies the Belén market with all products from fishing and the forest.
Welcome to Peru, Iquitos, Loreto. It's our jungle music and our traditional dancing. Dance, dance, dance!
The Belén market is a real hub where people can buy and sell products from the region and from northern Amazonia, especially from Brazil and Colombia. It feeds all the inhabitants of the city and guarantees a livelihood for thousands of fishermen, farmers, and tradesmen.
This is chimbil. Try it. You have to suck it, Philip, but don't swallow the stone.
It's tasty.
That's lizard. That's caiman. And that's a piranha. It's okay, it's dead. That's why it's not biting you. But it would if it was alive. That's kawa, a kind of catfish. They're alive, look.
I'm not sticking my finger in.
They don't bite. Go on, stick your finger in. Don't be scared, Philip.
Okay, I'll do it. I get the impression that the people of Iquitos and Belén don't really mix that much, and that the market is actually the only place they can meet.
Most people buy their groceries here because it's the biggest and the cheapest market. That's why the people who live in the lower town and the upper town all come here, along with people who live in the center of Iquitos. It's a meeting place. That's why it's so lively. This market is the heart and soul of Iquitos.
Without this market, Iquitos simply wouldn't exist. The city continues to attract new inhabitants, most of whom settle in Belén. But here, all urban development plans are made more difficult by the district's floodable geography. And there are many problems: the limited access to drinking water, wastewater treatment, public transport, public health, and even fire risks. In 2012, a huge blaze wiped out part of Belén. Since then, the state has set about building new homes. Supposedly modern and practical, these houses turned out to be badly designed and not really adapted to the district's needs. The flat corrugated iron roofs make it hard for rainwater to run away and increase the heat during the summer. As for the wood, it's of poor quality and rots much faster.
A really strong wind could blow these houses down. The state had these houses built, but with blueprints drawn up in Lima. So everything was worked out on paper. I'm telling you, if carpenters or people from the area had built these homes, they wouldn't have done it like this. They'd have built solid homes. They'd have done a very good job.
Sylvia, who's a merchant, lost everything in the fire, and she can't afford to rebuild her house, which was half destroyed. So she lives here with her 8 children. Tony, a volunteer fireman, is visiting her to give some tips on fire prevention. Hello.
Hola. The fire started when a gas bottle blew up. All the surrounding houses caught fire. It was really fast. In 2 minutes, the whole place was full of smoke.
I imagine that whether it's the dry season or the rainy season, access is the biggest problem.
Most of the people who live here are street vendors, and they block the entrance to the town. Belén is closed off and has no access roads. People build their homes wherever they like, not really assessing the dangers. They're not aware of sanitation issues either. The population is rising. People are constructing with no respect of regulations, and the district is extending towards the river. That is the biggest problem.
If it was possible, would you go live elsewhere?
It would depend on where. I'm a street vendor. I love my job, and I love working at the port. What I like most about Belén is what we who live on the riverbanks do, trading. If I lived farther away, it would be difficult to carry on. I was born and raised here. I like Belén. I adore Belén.
Sylvia's courage and her determination to stay in Belén despite all the obvious difficulties are moving. To fully understand Iquitos, I'll need to leave Belén and go up to the historical center of the city. The contrast is striking. I'm immediately struck by the well-laid-out streets and the buildings inspired by European architecture. Founded in the 17th century by Jesuit missionaries, Iquitos really began to grow in the 1880s with the rubber trade, which attracted thousands of migrants from Spain, Italy, Germany, and Portugal. It was during the 1970s, with the discovery and extraction of oil, that the city's population rose tremendously. Martin, a historian and expert on Iquitos, explains how the frenetic exploitation of natural resources for over a century by European migrants contributed to the city's development.
This is the first known map of Iquitos. It dates from 1886, which was the height of the rubber trade. What we need you to understand is Jesuit missions were already structured in this way. In many villages, there was a common central house, the maloca, sometimes in the form of a circle. Whereas the missions were laid out like a grid, divided into sections, and that continued. When the rubber trade started and they started constructing these buildings, they did so by following a configuration that was already in place.
When you see this grid-like layout, you realize how the European settlers imposed their own social and spatial organization, which had no relation at all with what existed before, and which enabled colonization.
One Jesuit said all Indians had to be converted, firstly from savages to humans, then from humans to Christians. That was the basic concept. You start by imposing a form of habitat, then how to structure a village, then a dress code. After that came beliefs, economic and ideological beliefs. During the rubber era, they started constructing European-style buildings with porcelain tiles, paved floors, ironwork. Everything was imported from Europe. The center of Iquitos was a slice of Europe right in the middle of Peruvian Amazonia. Take this building, for example, the Melicon Palace. It's a mixture of totally eclectic styles, Art Nouveau, Rococo, and this completely reflects the mentality of the cocheros, who loved to imitate the European style and implant it wherever they lived.
Martin is passionate about his hometown's history, but he's also extremely concerned about the future of Belén. Over the past few years, the state has been trying to systematically move people out of the district so as to empty it, but without offering any real work or lifestyle alternatives. Martin is collecting all sorts of information which could serve as concrete arguments against this governmental decision.
Alternatives need to be found to improve the lifestyle and well-being of the inhabitants without moving them elsewhere. How can I put it? I don't think Belén's problem is purely sanitary, with urine and excrement. Otherwise, how would the inhabitants of Venice cope? And Belén is known as the Venice of Amazonia. If they solve the problem in Venice, why can't we do it here? All this construction is part of a gradual process over the past few years. But people don't just live here, they vibrate. Their passions, their love, their parties, all of it's here. As are their pains, their sadness, their hardship, and their poverty. Because life is made up of all of that. The heart of Belén is the lower town. Belén is Iquitos. Without Belén, there'd be no Iquitos. And without the lower town, there'd be no Belén.
This goes over here. Is it holding up?
It's perfect.
Yeah, not bad.
It's solid.
Yep.
It's great.
Fantastic.
This is life in Iquitos. That's how the city is, and there's nothing we can do to change it.
To me, Iquitos is a particularly inspiring place. The city itself tells us a lot about the history of Peru, that of the colonists who came to exploit the country's natural resources, imposing their way of life through architecture and the street layout, and that of the Amerindians, the people of the river and the forest, whose spirit still resounds in Belén. It's this precarious district that amazed me most, a place where few people actually go and prefer to make up their minds from afar. I leave here energized by the tenacity, intelligence, and dignity of its inhabitants. They have enough strength to keep their district vibrating. Let's just hope that they're given the means to carry on. My name is Phillipe. I'm a philosopher, and I'm interested in how architecture shapes and defines our lifestyles. I'm taking you with me to explore some of the most unusual living environments on the planet, to better understand what's behind them and share what they have to offer. I'm in Rio, the cultural and tourist capital of Brazil. With its 6 million inhabitants, Rio is the country's second most populous city. It's situated in the southeastern part of Brazil at the entrance of the vast Guanabara Bay. With its carnival, white sand beaches, and granite peaks, Rio is a colorful, vibrant city marked by the dynamic nature of its inhabitants. But beyond this picture postcard image, Rio is also the favelas, the informal districts constructed illegally on the city's hillsides, which are home to almost 20% of the population. Long associated with violence and drug trafficking in the 1990s, the favelas benefited massively from large investments made by the municipality. Since then, some of them have shown clear signs of change, with improvements to infrastructures, the development of social services, and an opening up to tourism. I want to avoid the cliches about the squalid state of the favelas and find out how their inhabitants are participating in the reinvention of their lifestyles. Providencia is Rio's oldest favela. It began in 1897 after the War of Canudos, when soldiers waiting for official housing were given permission to set up temporary homes on the hillside overlooking the port. Today, 7,000 people are believed to live there. To get there, I take a moto taxi, the most practical way of navigating the winding roads which lead to Providencia. On entering the favela, I discover narrow streets and houses pretty much sitting one on top of the other. Barrocos in simple materials like wood and corrugated iron, but also more classic houses such as Giselle's. This 41-year-old woman is happy to live in Providencia and is very active in the local community. Giselle.
Hello, Phillipe. How are you?
I'm great, thanks.
Let me show you my home.
Fantastic. Thanks. I like this red wall. Have you lived in this house for long?
I've lived here for 22 years. But when I moved in, the walls were all green, and it was all dark inside. This room didn't have electricity, so I had to put in a makeshift extension. There was also a drainage problem. I had to change all the pipes. I've made lots of little improvements all over the place.
You must have worked hard to bring some comfort into a house that was pretty basic when you got here.
In the favelas, people improved their homes gradually. That's what I started doing when I moved in here. The house wasn't adapted for a child to live in, so I had to make a few changes. That's what all the residents do. But there's also the problem of getting the material up here. It takes a lot of time and effort, but everyone does it to change things and to make improvements. At one point, I hated this place so much I wanted to leave. But in the end, I decided to stay and build an upper level. It's normal for people to make their homes bigger. I'll show you the upstairs, but it's still a work in progress.
Okay.
Phillipe, this is the upper level. I'll show you the rooms. Here's the bedroom we're working on, with a bathroom.
Bathroom, a toilet, a shower. Wow, it's great. 2 bathrooms on this level.
I'm obsessed with bathrooms because as a kid we only had one, and there were a lot of us. So I want every bedroom to have an ensuite bathroom. Then we can all leave our bedrooms already clean and dressed.
That does make life easier.
And here's our terrace for sunbathing. Every favela house has to have a sunbathing terrace. With a shower.
Another shower?
Yes, we kind of turn it into a pool.
I see.
Otherwise, this wouldn't be a favela house.
The view's fantastic.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Is it complicated building a house like this?
It's very hard to build a house in a favela because you have to buy the materials outside. It's delivered to the bottom of the hill, and you have to pay someone to get it up here. So financially, it's really tough. For each cubic meter of material, be it sand or stone, it's the same transport cost. It works out at half the price of the house. Plus, labor is very expensive too. That's why it takes such a long time to complete a favela house.
So is it still possible to build your dream home in a favela?
For sure. If you want it bad enough, and even if it takes 10 years. That's what it's taken me. But it's possible.
We'll get there eventually.
The favela's a real maze. There are lots of deviations. You pass under the houses. The geography is pretty strange.
Providencia is a so-called pacified favela, where violence linked to drug trafficking is largely contained. But it still has its dangers, as were shown by the permanent presence of the somewhat badly viewed UPP, the Pacifying Police Unit. To offer an alternative to drug trafficking, a number of Providencia's residents are banking on education and culture. This is the case of photographer Mauricio Hora, himself the son of a former drug dealer in the neighborhood.
Phillipe, this is Mauricio.
Hello.
The house up there is amazing.
This house is a work of art for the community, but it's open to the entire world. It's a residence where artists come to share their art, and they come to share their talent with the community.
I see.
So, Philippe, shall I give you a visit?
Up there? Great. In 2009, Mauricio, along with French artist JR, decided to create Casa Amarela, a cultural center open to all, and especially youngsters. With its giant moon floating above the house, this unique place sends out a positive image of Providencia. It all began with a photojournalism report carried out by Mauricio on the favela and the life of its residents to mark Providencia's 100th anniversary. It's beautiful. Just amazing.
This is one of the best views of the favelas.
I'm sure it is. Mauricio, was there a real need for a cultural center like this in Providencia?
The idea of turning this house into a work of art was really exciting. The intention was not to attract tourists, but to give our youngsters various means to interact with the rest of Rio by teaching them photography, theater, filmmaking. The idea was to make the house a true cultural center for the youngsters of Providencia.
Mauricio saw his project through, but not without pressure from the municipality and from drug traffickers. In the favela, any kind of transformation demands personal investment, and it sometimes has its risks. What you did was very brave. It couldn't have been easy.
I risked my life. I was threatened several times. Family members, friends, and people involved with drug trafficking told me, There's talk on the street about you. You need to be careful. Sure, I was scared, but I was so committed, there was no turning back. I knew that if I quit, it'd be a step backwards for the community. Social policies aim to get youngsters to leave the favelas, but I don't believe in that. I think they simply need to learn how to transform the community on the inside.
This place is totally crazy. The view is awesome. From the heights of Providencia, I can see how much the favelas are an integral part of Rio. I am also struck by their extreme density. The inhabitants of the favelas are confronted by intense overcrowding. Rio's population explosion since the 1950s means that today there's a severe lack of official housing. Tavares Bastos, some 25 kilometers from Providencia, is one of the most densely populated neighborhoods in Rio. To get there, I take a minibus. The residents of the favelas have access to this inexpensive means of transport to travel between the different districts of the city. Tavares Bastos is a particularly safe favela. Here, despite the lack of land available for construction, each resident has managed to find a corner to live in. I meet Jose Luis, who has been building his house for the past 20 years. Hello. How are you?
Good. And you?
Great, thanks.
Good.
The favelas are officially no construction zones, but here we have a 4-story building. It's a bit crazy, isn't it?
There are construction standards. I draw all the plans myself, trying to find the best way to use the available space. As the houses are all stuck together, they support one another. That's how they remain standing, because the foundations literally float on the ground. We don't ask for authorizations from the city. Otherwise, we'd have to submit proper plans, apply for construction permits, and pay taxes. Here, you simply draw up the plans yourself. You decide everything on your own.
The priority for people is obviously to construct all these houses lined up side by side, but that doesn't leave a lot of room in the streets for circulation.
Before, the van that delivered milk went right to the end of the favela. There was enough room for it to get through. But bit by bit, each inhabitant extended their home a few centimeters, and then a few more, and then a few more. And the space became more constricted. I can tell you, in some places, you pass each other on the street with your backs to the wall. Like this, completely sideways. People think that because so-and-so has extended his house, they can too. And why not? Some passageways are only 80 centimeters wide.
With its small houses piled up on top of each other, Tavares Bastos has an obvious lack of streets and squares where people can gather. A small football field, sunken into the surrounding buildings, is one of the few open spaces in the favela. It's Raimundo who maintains it and organizes the events it hosts. He is desperate to keep this community-based space going despite pressure from those who want to build on it. It's as if people push the walls aside.
Actually, it's the opposite. It's been a long process. People constructing their houses have gradually encroached right up to the edges of the rectangle.
I believe spaces like this are crucial because in the favelas, everyone seems to be preoccupied with housing, and there's little thought given to public spaces.
You've raised an important question. The population is growing significantly. As the football field is one of the largest open spaces in the community, we hold religious services here, samba classes, football matches, conferences, and meetings. We use it to promote a whole host of activities, which benefit the entire community.
I think that the feeling of belonging you have for a neighborhood is less about images and symbols and more about spaces people can share together.
When you see millions of people pass through here, and they all recognize and appreciate the football field, it encourages me to maintain it. I'm really proud when visitors say our community is different because of it. I realize the importance of sharing things and passing them on to others. See, you're full of admiration about this place, and that helps keep me going. I want people from outside the favela to know that we all live in hope.
For a long time, the residents of the favelas could count only on themselves to improve their neighborhoods. Before the 1990s, many thought it was pointless to invest time, energy, and money in homes that were bound to disappear, either on their own or by forced evictions. But today, more and more people from outside of these neighborhoods are showing interest in them. Some architects are starting to see them as places to launch projects with a high potential. Pedro Evora is one of this generation of architects with a new vision of the favelas. He explains how this change in status came about.
Before, all elected politicians saw the favelas as places that shouldn't exist. But in the 1980s, several governments favoring the working classes started advocating the need to make buildings more permanent and to urbanize the favelas. For this, they called on town planners and technicians who were given the task of finding ways to endow these neighborhoods with an urban infrastructure.
But these so-called temporary homes are very much part of the city's identity.
What you say is very true, because Rio de Janeiro is well known for its favelas. The favelas are constructions in perpetual motion, and they're growing fast. If you look at the statistics, you can see they have the highest horizontal and vertical growth rate in the city. It's because there are more and more buildings being constructed in concrete, and that makes vertical growth possible when it was impossible with wooden structures.
What interests me about the favelas is the invention, the creativity of residents who have learned how to get by on their own. What interests you about them?
What interests me are the things that haven't been solved yet, the problems. I see my work as a possibility of coming up with solutions for difficult contexts. That's the role of the architect, I think. We need to get across problematic lines. I think that architects have now understood their importance in the process of articulating public space. But in private space, too, the homes of the residents, there are also a lot of developments we could make. Here in Rio, we need to construct infrastructures to help accelerate the regularization of the favelas. The favelas are now our priority.
Vidigal is one favela that is starting to attract outside investors. Hugging the hillsides that overlook the chic Ipanema and Leblon beaches, in the past 10 years, Vidigal has become one of Rio's new hotspots. This popular haunt of artists is now seeing new residents moving in, looking to benefit from its exceptional location. Gwendel, an artist, decorator, and actor, was born and raised here. He speaks to me about the changes in his neighborhood. Gwendel.
Hey, how are you?
Good. So this is your studio?
Yes, this is where I do all of my craft work. Set design, carpentry, and making various objects and musical instruments. I make everything in here. It's a bit of a pigsty, but it suits me just fine. I live upstairs. My home is right above. How about I show you around?
Oh, yeah, sure. It's really big.
It's awesome. You like it?
It's wonderful, brilliantly decorated.
And here's the view over Vidigal.
What a magnificent view. Who are the people who have moved into Vidigal? And those who keep moving in today?
Most of them are people who've always been curious about belonging to a community, but have always been scared of the violence, and there's a fair amount of that. It's mostly artists and bohemian chic who make up these new curious people. And since the pacification of the favelas, they're much keener to move into Vidigal. The inhabitants of the neighboring chic districts are getting to know our community, and now they realize it's a nice place, very safe, and life is a lot cheaper. We also have a vibrant cultural scene and nightlife, and the people are really welcoming. And that's true of all the favelas.
So all these new residents have contributed to the neighborhood by bringing in not only culture.
Yes, things have improved financially. It's an opportunity for us to increase our incomes. I have 2 houses a bit higher up, which I rent out. Before I charged 600 reals a month, but now I charge 1,000. That gives me more spending power, and there are a lot of us benefiting from that.
Do you think there will come a time when the original residents of Vidigal won't be able to afford to live here?
With the rise in the cost of living, part of the population already feels they have to leave the community they grew up in. They're being forced to move because they can no longer afford to meet their needs. When people who were born and raised here are forced to leave, the community loses part of its identity, its origins, its roots. This is the negative side of this new social mix.
Vidigal is one favela which is enjoying its opening up, but it means excluding its poorer inhabitants. Is this gentrification the ultimate price to pay for the development of the favelas? Personally, I don't think so. There are alternative models. I returned to Providencia, whose community spirit really left its mark on me. Mauricio has invited me to a barbecue on the roof of the Yellow House, a chance for me to spend a little more time with Giselle and the other residents of the neighborhood. Thank you so much for your hospitality. When I see all the energy and intelligence you put into Providencia, I tell myself that the favelas still have plenty of surprises up their sleeve. The inhabitants of the favelas have many things to teach us. Confined to the hillsides of a city that didn't want them, and left to their own devices with no real support, they have constructed places that are full of life, sources of a multiracial culture, extremely inventive, and an integral part of Rio's identity. I simply hope that the favelas will not become a picture postcard memory and that all residents of Rio will be able to benefit from the huge potential of these dynamic neighborhoods. there's a swimming pool. Awesome. My name is Phillipe. I'm a philosopher, and I'm interested in how architecture shapes and defines our lifestyles. I'm taking you with me to explore some of the most unusual living environments on the planet, to better understand what's behind them and share what they have to offer. Hello, are you free? Havana is the capital of Cuba, the biggest of the Caribbean islands. A mixture of tropical paradise and revolutionary nostalgia, the city has gone through a major transformation since the early 1990s.
Hola.
The fall of the Soviet Union in 1991 left Cuba without its principal economic partner. Billions of dollars in aid disappeared. Basic commodities were rationed, and the gas shortage stopped land workers from delivering their produce to the cities. The Cubans refer to this major food crisis as the Special Period. In order to survive, the inhabitants of Havana began growing fruit and vegetables without using machines, fertilizer, or petrochemical pesticides. Right across the city, the inhabitants took advantage of available space to create vegetable gardens known as organoponicos. Today, the city has made a virtue out of necessity. With its 400,000 farming enterprises and 2 million tons of fruit and vegetable produced each year, Havana has established itself as a leader in organic urban agriculture. I want to understand how market gardening has transformed everyday life for the inhabitants and rejuvenated their perception of the city. I have come to the Guanabacao neighborhood to meet Dario and Lizzie. This couple has been dedicated to urban agriculture for several years, and they have converted their house into a vegetable garden. Their neighborhood carries the marks of time on its flaking colored walls, which have a charm all of their own. It's difficult to believe that behind these crumbling facades, organoponicos can be found. Dario?
Yes.
Hello.
Oh, Phillipe, how are you?
Well, and yourself?
Very well, very well.
Thank you for inviting me.
This is our little house, my wife and I. It's typically Cuban. Downstairs, there are 4 other families. Let me show you the rest of the house and take you up to see the organoponico on the roof.
Okay, I'm right behind you. The living quarters at Dario and Lizzie's place are cramped. Nonetheless, the couple decided to dedicate part of the space to their breeding and market gardening activities. Indoors, we find rabbit breeding and beehives, and on the roof, plants, vegetables, and fruit. They've baptized their house Granjita Feliz, the happy little farm.
You need to hold on tight.
I'll be careful.
Go carefully.
All right. Here we go.
That's it. Very good.
Thank you. Hello.
Phillipe?
Hello, Lizzie.
Hello, delighted. You really grow plants everywhere.
We've planted lettuce, chard, tomatoes, peppers.
Is this PVC?
Yes, indeed, it's PVC.
It's great.
Yes, look. We cut it, make little holes in it, and that's what you get.
And this is hydroponics. It's very interesting because it allows you to grow things without soil, so you can do it anywhere. It's a very clever system.
And look at this, mint.
Ah, yes, for mojitos. How did the special period result in the development of organic urban agriculture?
At the start of the special period, the country fell into an economic crisis, particularly in the domain of agriculture, because there was no petrol to power the machines, tractors, and irrigation systems. Agriculture suffered enormously. It was really disastrous. That's how urban agriculture was born. It was the beginning of the organoponicos, and today they have spread throughout the country. People can grow things in their courtyard or allotment and make money out of it. We live in the heart of the city, and we believe in making use of whatever space you have. As we had no land, we decided to set up our organoponico on the roof.
It seems to me that these planted balconies, these roof gardens, are like an additional room where people can find some peace and harmony.
With our apartment, we have no courtyard or garden. But we have this terrace, which serves as a garden. We celebrated the New Year with our own tomatoes, and I can tell you there were enough for the whole family.
What's more, it's very practical for me, because I don't need to go and buy them. I pick them here to use them indoors. It's very practical.
Directly from the roof to the kitchen.
Are those strawberries?
Yes, look. Strawberries in Cuba are like mangoes in France.
Ah, yes.
Very rare. They're very expensive, so you're better off growing them. The strawberry grows, we eat it. We make milkshakes, juice, jam.
Growing plants here is a lot of work. It's an everyday activity. What do you get out of it?
I love it. Every day I see the plants grow. They're all flowers, all the fragrances, and the bees which come. When I see a new flower, I watch over the fruit as it grows and I say to myself, oh no, no, it will be mine, all mine. This fat fruit which I saw when it was small is mine. You can't put a price on that.
Listening to you, I realize that these domestic gardening activities and urban agriculture are not just a question of food. It's also a way of calming down your relationship with an urban environment which is quite aggressive.
Of course. It's a marvelous way of being in contact with nature in the city. It's relaxing, helpful, and soothing. Peace in a rather agitated life. It's precious for me and those around me. What's more, people who come here say to me, ah, a rosemary plant. I want a sprig. It makes them want to grow it too. And then often they say, I have no land, I can't plant anything. But you have a balcony. Ah, yes, I have a balcony. Well then, put a few pots on your balcony. Can you give me a cutting, a small plant? It's an interesting exchange because there's no money involved. I give you something which belongs to me, but you have to take care of it. You're obliged. At the end of the day, these are very interesting and very gratifying exchanges.
Organoponicos are present right across Havana in very different forms. Private terraces, like Dario and Lizzie's, individual allotments, but also large gardens created as of 1991 at the initiative of the Cuban government. Organoponico is a typically Cuban genetic name, referring to a setup composed of low walls filled with organic matter. Using little water, this technique makes it possible to grow on surfaces of very different nature and size. Jorge Padron is in charge of the Miramar Organoponico, one of the first to be created in Havana. It's astonishing to be in the city center like this, and in the middle of all the buildings and cars, to come across cultivated areas. How did the change from little private gardens to large enterprises like this come about?
It began in 1992, when General Raúl Castro decided to set up production systems in the city. Cuba was going through a difficult time, the special period which everyone knows about. We made a fresh start, and we created a production system which could provide fresh fruit and vegetables without chemical products. Added to this, there was no need for long-distance transportation.
In order for urban agriculture to develop, it meant that all the inhabitants had to start growing. Even those who had different professions had to learn new techniques for market gardening and horticulture.
In fact, it wasn't a question of improvisation. This type of agriculture is based on science and technology. Research institutes perfected production techniques for urban agriculture. Professionals went to each garden to show the workers how to prepare the land, how to sow seed, how to take care of the plants, when to water. Everyone received training. This innovation doesn't just concern Cuba. We have many visitors from around the world. People interested in this form of agriculture because it's not common to see an organoponico in the middle of a city.
What I find very interesting about this system is the direct contact between farmers and inhabitants. There are no intermediaries at all. In fact, the inhabitants have their own garden.
The inhabitants see how production takes place. They understand the importance of eating fresh vegetables and of the vitamins present in a lot of food items. They give us a lot of support. Schools come to visit us, we heighten children's awareness, we give courses. There's genuine interaction between us and the local population.
The development of these organoponicos was a state initiative, which the inhabitants took over. In Miramar, 8 people work full-time. As with many other organoponicos, it's a cooperative which makes its income from the sale of vegetables. It's sold immediately. The local inhabitants come here to get their supplies from producers who they know and trust. This closed-circuit agriculture accounts for 50% of market produce consumption, which allows Havana to move towards greater autonomy in food production. The urban landscape seems to change in rhythm with nature's germination cycle, as though growing in the city were synonymous with the growth of the city. But how has the population been able to find and dedicate so much space to agricultural usage? In the historic neighborhood, with its Spanish colonial architecture, I meet up with Eileen Robanis Barcia, the architect in charge of the city's heritage. Eileen, hello.
Hello, delighted. How are you?
Yes, me too. I'm very well, thank you. It's good to meet up in the park because I have the impression that within the historic center, there are slightly fewer green areas.
Here, we took advantage of the collapse of a building. It was a palace.
I see, which fell down.
Whenever a palace collapses, we take advantage of the fact to create a park. I brought you a map of the city.
Oh, great.
Shall we sit here?
Yeah, sure.
Look.
So where are we exactly?
We're here. This little area that you see is the historic center of Havana. The colonial city was inside the walls, very cramped with few green areas.
Did all the private gardens and then the organoponicos spring up in that zone?
No, there are organoponicos all over the city. If we look at an old map, you see that in colonial times there were houses and vegetable gardens everywhere. It's as though old ideas have come back. You need a place close to home for growing carrots, lettuce, tomatoes.
What I find fascinating about Havana is the availability of land. You manage to find ground that can be cultivated, where you can start growing things. It seems to me that that's very important because in a lot of European cities where people would like to develop urban agriculture, there just isn't room.
Yes, from that point of view, we're very lucky in Havana. For a long time now, we've had more or less the same number of inhabitants for the same surface area.
I see.
It's thanks to the fact that after the triumph of the revolution, the government put a lot of effort into developing other parts of the country, and Havana didn't grow very much. That meant that land could be protected and numerous green spaces could be created.
Right.
On the other hand, we have an enormous number of very old and dilapidated buildings. Consequently, when one of them collapses, we jump on the opportunity to create a new garden or a new park.
Since the special period, the Cuban government has always supported the development of urban agriculture.
Yes.
But today, the country's economic situation has changed. So how do you see the future of this agricultural practice?
I think it will continue to develop. Even though at the beginning it was a necessity, we've learned a lot over time. The government came to realize that we have become a reference model. For example, a lot of organizations in different countries are still looking to develop this system. We're looking into ideas for the future, how to create park streets, green squares, as well as gardens and vegetable patches in the heart of the neighborhoods where buildings have collapsed. So I don't think that vegetable gardens will disappear. They're going to develop. The concept of urban agriculture will strengthen. That's a good thing.
Since their first appearance in the 1990s, the status of organoponicos has changed, and they have gone far beyond their purely nutritional function. They meet the need for nature and well-being which today's population demands. The vegetable gardens are breathing spaces which make the city more inhabitable. Dario and Lizzie dedicate part of their time to a neighborhood association which helps children in difficulty and promotes the philosophy of urban agriculture.
Wait, look. Go for the one which is completely red.
Let me see. Don't dig so deeply.
For Dario and Lizzie, urban agriculture has a social and instructive dimension. The vegetable garden represents an ideal place of conviviality to regain direct contact with the earth and develop as an individual with respect and understanding of nature.
Phillipe, those are peppers you're planting.
The king of the garden. The king of the vegetable garden. Gracias. Ah, that's a nice one.
Bravo, nicely planted, Phillipe.
Thank you.
Look at the roots of this shoot.
The important thing for you is that everyone learns to grow for themselves at home.
We try to teach them agriculture. That way, all these people will be able to grow ornamental plants in pots or cans at home, and then sell them. They could have a bed of lettuce, chard, tomatoes, peppers. The objective is to give them a degree of independence.
Every month, baskets of organic produce are distributed at the local church as a gift from the farmers of Havana.
An eggplant, do you know how to cook it?
Yes.
You could serve it with cheese, that's delicious.
Ah, yes.
But you need cheese as well.
There you are, some lovely eggplants. Eggplants, they're beautiful. And some spring onions.
Here, this is for you.
Yes, it's a bit heavy.
We're Cuban. We're used to it.
Urban agriculture is a global approach because it's at the same time a question of producing vegetables, a question of the environment, and a question of social solidarity.
Yes, of course. It's a new agricultural project which links agricultural production with a human objective. The aim is to have solidarity between the farmers and the population, a population which needs these food resources. What's more, the fruit and vegetables are completely organic. They provide a healthy and balanced diet.
Whether it's a question of individual initiatives or large state-funded farms, the development of urban agriculture has revolutionized the way of life in Havana over the last 30 years. While the roof garden or allotment is now regarded as an extra room, the house itself has seen its usage redefined. Dario and Lizzie take me to meet Rosario, a neighbor who has transformed part of her dwelling into a restaurant.
Hello, how are you? Is Rosario in?
Mummy, Dario's here.
Hello, Rosario, how are you? I'd like you to meet Phillipe.
Hello.
This is Donna Rosario, her granddaughter, and the children.
We're really in their home, in the house, in the living room with their photos and everything. I love the idea of entertaining at home like this. It's great. The house is no longer just the place where you live. It has become the space which creates life. The rise of the domestic restaurant, like that of urban agriculture, has provided a tool for professional integration, particularly for women and the young, who for a long time were kept out of employment. Ah, this is lovely. Hello. We're at the next door neighbors. Ah, that's it. It's ready. It's quite something. Here you are.
Thank you.
Generous serving.
And very good as well.
Are there a lot of places like this in Havana?
You have to realize that cafeterias represent the most extensive model for family enterprises in Havana. There are thousands of them.
What I love about this system is that, in fact, it's a form of urban solidarity. You open your house to the street, you open your house to people, and it's a way of making acquaintances.
Basically, these are all bridges which link places and people. People are very happy to offer the fruit of their labor, and everyone gets acquainted. Cafeterias allow people to form a bond with their neighborhood and the community. When you serve a plate of food like this, prepared with love and respect, people appreciate it more.
What I find fascinating here is that around food, around the cafeteria, as well as the gardens, the allotments, the organoponicos, it's always a question of meeting. It's always a question of socializing. And consequently, it's a way of building the community. What strikes you in Havana is the way in which agroecology has become a way of city life adopted by all the inhabitants. It's a model which other cities would do well to copy. Not only because Havana demonstrates that organic agriculture is possible within the urban environment, but also because it is inseparably linked with the values of solidarity and hospitality. By sharing spaces and resources, it reminds us that cultivating teaches us to live together. Are there still a lot of barbers in Havana?
Yes. Most of them work at home. How's that? Do you like it?
Yes, it's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name's Phillipe. I'm a philosopher and I'm interested in what architecture can tell us about our lifestyles. I'll take you to explore some of the most remarkable habitats on the planet in order to discover their meaning and to share their riches. Louisiana, a southern state of the United States where the Mississippi River ends its course, its meanders spreading out into a huge delta formed by alluvial deposits carried out by the river to the mouth of the Gulf of Mexico. This is the Bayou country, an area of land and stagnant water measuring a quarter of the size of France, possessing an exceptionally rich ecosystem and the most fertile fishing ground in the United States. Already subjected to seasonal hurricanes and flooding of the Mississippi, the region is now facing another threat. The land is sinking little by little. The causes are predominantly man-made. Flood barriers, levees, canals, and swamp draining are blocking the sediment deposits that strengthen the land level. It's estimated that the equivalent size of a football field disappears every hour. At this rate, Louisiana will have lost 30% of its territory before the end of the century. How do people live on land that's disappearing at such a rate? After a 2-hour drive south of New Orleans, I arrive at Puerto Chiambayu. Renowned for its abundance of crabs, shrimp, and oysters, it's also one of the most exposed zones to storms and flooding. Dwayne is a boat captain on the Mississippi, and he spends all his free time fishing in the swamps. I feel that the way of life here in the bayou is closely linked to nature.
Down here, you got a lot of freedom. You know, like me, I wake up in the morning for, like when shrimp season open, I go shrimping. Or like this morning, I woke up at 4 o'clock, went crabbing. You know, all your surroundings is all there. You know, whatever you want to do, it's almost like a kid with a new toy. You know, you wake up in the morning and you just go after it. And like I said, I've been doing it for 30 years now, and enjoy doing it. And hope I live a few more years to keep doing it again. A lot of old people that live down here, that's all they ever did, you know.
There are some with blue claws and some with red claws. I've caught a whole bunch here. Let's go, guys. He pinches hard, huh?
Yep, if you're ever looking for a job, you know where to come at. Yeah.
Are there a lot of crabs here?
You usually got a lot more crabs than that in there, but that's what we got today. You got some days is better than others.
So what's changed?
The salt water been coming from offshore and all, and I guess it's killing a lot of vegetation that the crabs would all live on, I'm thinking. Plus hurricanes and stuff. So let's say a lot of that salt water coming in with the storms, it takes about half of it away every year. And sometimes we get like 1 or 2, maybe 3 hurricanes a year.
Dwayne's house has been destroyed 3 times by hurricanes. Rather than move away, he and his wife, Sherry, have decided to stay and rebuild. I go to Puente Shen, a nearby village, to take a look at their new house. How are you? Your house is magnificent. When did you build it?
The house originally is like 25 years old, but we had 3 hurricanes that flooded the home. I've lost my home 3 times.
So the first time, the water reached this height?
No, the house was originally on a cement slab. It was a brick home. And for the first hurricane, we had about 3 inches.
I see.
About 3 inches. So we had to cut the inside of the walls to 3 feet. We ended up cutting it 3 feet, and we pulled all the insulation out. Then another storm came a few years later. Then I had about 1 foot of water. So we had to cut all the walls again, take all the insulation out. Well, the third time, we had 4 feet of water. So that was it. I was ready to run. But with all the new guidelines and insurance companies for the regulations for you to be able to have electricity in the home, you had to go 10 feet above sea level. So that's why my house is now 10 feet.
I'm impressed by the number of stilts your house is built on and by their thickness. They're much bigger than the ones you see on the neighboring houses.
I was worried about if another storm came or just a bad thunderstorm, that the wind would shift the house back and forth. So we put forth the money extra to go with 12 by 12s. And we have 76 under this home, and this house ain't going anywhere. It doesn't shake, it doesn't move whatsoever. Welcome, Phillipe.
Thank you. Did your husband build all of this?
A lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
I can imagine. Are we going over there? Okay. But despite all these catastrophes, you decided to stay here regardless.
At first, I was upset, and I wrote for sale with a spray can of paint. But, like, who's going to buy it whenever you have 4 feet of water in it? So my husband's not a carpenter. He's a boat captain, but he very handy, and he rebuilt our home. It took 3 years to rebuild with him working 7/7 on the tugboat, but we was able to do it, and I love my home. I wouldn't trade it for anything. It took two days for the water to get out the house so we can, before we get to start cleaning up. And as you can see, that's the big pile in my front yard of all my belongings.
And when you came back, everything was destroyed. What did you think at that point?
I wanted to leave. I didn't want to stay. So we lived with my mom for months before we actually came back down here. But the people were just not as friendly in town as they are down here. And that's what made our decision. We need to come back home. So we decided to elevate.
The fact that everything is raised here, the houses, the public buildings, the churches, do you think this gives the bayou a new architectural identity?
Oh yes, it's just our way of life. Nobody really wanted to live, but we knew if we wanted to stay together as a family in this community, that's what we had to do. And I was so against lifting, I really, really was. But now that I'm high, I'm good. That's definitely our identity now. If you want to live on the bayou, you're going to have to elevate. You're going to have to live up.
By raising her house, Sherry protects it from flooding. But this seems to me to be a temporary solution. What will she do in a few decades' time when the water's permanently at the foot of the stilts? In order to prepare for this situation, the residents of the Lafourche Bayou district, located farther east, have opted for a radical solution, surrounding themselves with huge levees measuring 80 kilometers in circumference. Wendell Carroll is in charge of this levee system. So we're right on the levee here, and we can see both sides.
Inside the levee system, we haven't flooded since we closed the system. So people can build a little bit differently on the inside the system. On the outside, you have to build with the understanding that water is going to be over your property once in a while. If you build up and water goes into your yard, that's an inconvenience. Water going into your house is a disaster. But the people who stay, they deal with that risk of the water, but they love the lifestyle. The rest have moved away and traveled to the lifestyle. You have to work a little bit harder to live the way we used to live.
But in the past, did all the people who lived in the bayou have houses like these?
No, the houses weren't built that way. They basically were on the ridge, and the ridge had some decent elevation, and they built above the ridge, so there was some height there too, but not to this height. But because the land has dropped so much, they have to build this high if you're not inside of a levee system. So we've had to change how we build. We always built with some elevation, but since the ground is going down, we've had to build the houses higher above the natural ground. Because we've stopped the river, we're getting some tremendously fast geologic changes in water that might have been, or land that might have been above sea level just a few years ago, now is below sea level.
This phenomenon of sinking land is due primarily to a combination of man-made factors. Underground mining of hydrocarbons by the oil companies, but also the increasing number of dams, levees, and canals upriver from the Mississippi Delta is preventing the river from carrying the sediment that naturally cemented the land.
The water here is at 8 feet below sea level.
Okay.
And the water here is at sea level, or plus, actually almost +2.
Okay. And when was this levee built?
Started in 1976. And we finished the circle in 1993. And since that time, we've been increasing the height and making it better. Okay. We flooded in 1985. But since we closed the system, we've not flooded.
And it goes from where to where?
It goes from La Rose, Louisiana to Golden Meadow. 4 communities, about 27,000 people. Just further down, we don't have a levee system in Leeville. And Leeville no longer is really a community because of subsidence. And then with some sea level rise, it became more and more necessary to build the levees. And that's going to continue. I have communities that will either have to build levees or abandon the communities.
But how do you explain that on one side, the sea level's rising, and on the other, the land's sinking?
Well, actually, on both sides of the land, the whole platform is sinking. We have, if you look at Leeville, of the last 100 years, lost 4 feet, 3 feet to subsidence, and 1 foot to sea level rise. We're losing land faster from that and losing elevation faster than sea level rise. So combined, it's a very bad problem.
To prevent flooding, you build levees. But what can you do to prevent land from sinking?
Really, you just have to deal with it. You deal with it the best you can. You know that the land is sinking. Nothing lasts forever. As long as it makes sense here, we will live here. And when it doesn't make sense, we'll continue to move. But we have been moving. We've generation by generation have moved, and there will come a time when we'll move again.
Wendell has a pragmatic approach. For him, wherever there's a parcel of land left, you stay here and build protective walls around it. But what does this represent for the people who live here? Nick's an oyster fisherman and lives inside the levee system.
We're actually in a bowl. So the levees completely circle. You know, it keeps the water out.
Oui.
And that's our protection from the hurricanes. Hopefully it works.
Hello.
Hey, baby. How you doing?
I'm Phillipe.
Hi, I'm Lori.
Pleased to meet you. It's surprising that you're on the right side of the levee, yet you still raised your house.
Yes, we do. I mean, for the most part, unless you get something really severe, you know, we are protected. We are within the levee, so yeah, I feel protected.
What's gonna protect you from Katrina? You know, nothing.
I don't stay.
Right.
just because you never know when that hit's going to be.
So every time there's a storm or a hurricane, you leave?
I go to my mom's. She lives in North Texas. I go far enough.
Yes. It's hundreds of kilometers away. And what about you, Nick? You don't leave? You stay here?
No, I stay here. And we got to take care of all the boats and the houses. We got 5 boats, 7 houses, and you just got too much stuff to leave for. And for the business, for the oysters, I welcome the hurricanes. I love hurricanes because they might kill 30% of my oysters, but they'll give me 1,000% back.
But if there's a flood, can you move your house somewhere else?
To move it now, it would be very expensive, but it can be moved. I think if they moved it now, they would move it on a barge. I found this house up the road about 15, 20 miles, and I bought it, and it was an old house. This old man and old lady lived in it, and it was real old. It was a shotgun house, just the big part, and then this part was a shed. We put cedar on the outside because it's natural, it's durable, it lasts long, it's low maintenance. So, you know, and then here we are.
But when I look at this house, it seems so light, and it's just raised on stilts. It's as if you've decided that nature was more powerful than man, and that it was useless to try to fight it.
Really, I guess. It's a hit and miss. I mean, it's Mother Nature.
Yes.
Hit and miss anywheres.
You know, 1930s, if the people would have been smart, they would have left the river flow in the Bayou Lafourche. Land would still be building, and we would all live in houseboats. And our houseboats would go up and down with the tide. And there, I think, is where the Corps of Engineers and the government maybe made a mistake down here, close to the coast. I always said that growing up. Why don't we live on the side of the bayou? Because that's where everybody lived at first, by the bayou.
What's left of the bayou? I feel that with the disappearance of the swamps, the inhabitants are speaking of a landscape that doesn't really exist anymore. Going a few dozen kilometers farther north to Grand Bayou Noir, I learn of the existence of a preserved bayou, recognized as a protected nature reserve. Pershing was born and raised here, inheriting the cultural wealth of his Cajun ancestors who lived in harmony with the swamps. The Cajuns were French speakers coming from Acadia in Canada. Evicted by the British in 1755, they found refuge and settled in the French colony of Louisiana. Did the entire Mississippi Delta look like this?
I believe that most of it looked like this. You know, the natural, before the white guys came, the white man came, when the Indians lived here, and there was no levees along the river, the natural flooding from the river every spring over the thousands of years caused the land to build up. That's what built all this Delta area.
Who were the first inhabitants of the bayou, and how did they live?
First inhabitants were probably Native Americans, Indians. Those were the first folks, and they kind of mingled with the Acadians when the Acadians came in. In fact, the Acadians probably learned a lot about living off the land from those folks. You know, a lot of the Cajuns who moved here, and they were fishermen, and they could live off the land.
And when these two populations became intermingled, what type of habitat did they live in?
I guess one of the differences between what happened in a lot of places in America and here is that they had to raise the structures for a couple of reasons. One was the flooding. There was a lot of flooding going on. And then with the flooding came snakes and things like that. So they had to raise the houses to get those animals, keep those animals out, but also it kept them cool too. So you'll find even the poorest structures, some of the old structures from the 1900s that were built with the old growth cypress, and even the mansions had similar characteristics, but they could live there and also live off the land because there was a huge amount of diversity.
The bayou is gradually disappearing, and that's a true catastrophe. At the same time, I've witnessed an incredible energy from the inhabitants. Do you think that they're capable of reinventing their way of life, how they live?
The only issue that might be severe would be a direct hit from a hurricane that would destroy the land, take places out like Îles, and so that could have a profound impact upon how people are here and what they do. But the culture goes everywhere, man. It's a culture people love. It's not gonna ever get lost. The land may get lost, but not the culture.
Île Jean-Charles that Pershing mentioned is located in the southernmost part of Louisiana. The situation here is critical. The island has lost almost half of its landmass over the last 15 years. For the Native American community that lives here, it isn't just the land, but their entire culture that's living on borrowed time. Who are the inhabitants of this island?
They're mostly Chiramachi and Choctaw, Native American. Some of my grandparents, they married French people that came from Canada, so I'm not full Native.
So that means you speak French?
Yes, I speak French.
Does everyone here speak it?
The old people still do, the older people, but some of the younger, like in their 30s or 40s, do, but like the young ones that are going to school now, no.
I'm struck by the height of these houses. How high up are they? 3 or 4 meters?
This house here is 15 feet above sea level.
Par-dessus le sea level. Well, there used to be barrier islands in the Gulf, and that did a lot to protect this land and all around. But they're all eroded. They're all gone.
Do you feel much more exposed now than before?
Definitely, yes.
I say so.
Oh, yes.
A lot.
A lot.
A lot?
A lot, yes.
Why is that?
There's nothing left, and they're not building us that big levee around us, because they said to include the island, it would cost too much money. So.
It's true that when you look all around here, you see that there's really nothing left. There's no land, no trees, and you can see that the water is gaining ground.
Yes. Oh, yes. There was
a lot more than what they have now. There used to be a piece of land, because we used to fish on the other side of it, and it's not there no more.
I can imagine my neighborhood changing, my town changing, but I can't imagine that the land I live on could just one day totally disappear. Do you see yourselves ever leaving here?
It's going to come to that. We all know it, so we just have to prepare ourselves, I guess.
A lot of people have already left at the risk of the community becoming dispersed. Albert, the chief, tries to convince the remaining inhabitants that it's time to leave the island. Do you think that your community can continue to exist elsewhere?
If we can take the people here, reunite all those that was pushed off this community, what we call the island, if we can get the people to back together, to reunite, this community will survive. Our kids are going to call that new community home, just like we call this here home. So it's just going to be a different place, kind of a different generation, but the kids there, that we could teach them was paradise, and it was, because we could run all over this island here. It was ours.
I join Nick in his boat again for a last sail on the river. Inundated by the sea, the bayou appears something of a paradox, full of vitality and life, even though everything that makes up its wealth is disappearing more and more each day.
Naturally, this was all land. My daddy used to tie me to that middle pipe in my walker, and I couldn't go, I'd just go around. So I've been on this boat all my life. And, I grew up, I couldn't wait to be an oysterman. Next year, that much land gone.
When I listen to you, I can feel that you have a very strong, almost intimate relationship with this land.
I love the land. I wish I could rebuild it. I wish we wouldn't lose it. I mean, what are we gonna do in 100 years? What are my grandkids gonna do? They'll never know the stories I tell them to be true. There won't be no land to justify it. I brought y'all in these canals back here because I wanted to show y'all the trees, but there's no more.
They've all gone.
Very few trees. So yeah, I have a strong tie with the land. I'm not an Indian, but I feel like an Indian. I love the earth, the sea, the air, and I think more people should respect and love it. And maybe we would have more of it.
As I leave the bayou, I'm struck by the resilience of its inhabitants, by their ability to deal with an extreme situation. The gradual destruction of their island hasn't destroyed their will to live here, but has reinforced their sense of belonging to the same community. He's trying to get me, this one. He pinches hard. Even with gloves on.